Hi again. We're going to create in this video a navigation bar using HTML and CSS. Now I've already tried to do this video once and previously I managed to record the whole thing and not turn the microphone on, which is particularly not useful when you're trying to do something which is quite detailed like HTML code and CSS. So we'll run through it again, except rather than going through the whole tutorial this time, I'm going to break it down into a smaller section. So we'll start off with navigation bar, and the idea is that we're going to use the list HTML tag, and then we're going to apply CSS coding to it. So rather than appearing like a traditional list going down the page with your bullet points or your numbers or whatever you have, we're going to make it appear as a block, and then we can apply styling to it, so that you could do things like have rollovers or make it into a hyperlink and so on. So I'll go straight into Dreamweaver, and Dreamweaver itself looks a little bit different because I've edited the preferences to make it have a darker color scheme, but the actual code itself is exactly the same. In fact, if any of you use Sublime Text, it looks a little bit similar to that, to be honest. And the page, it looks like this. So I've got my two-column layout. I've got an image on the left, and I've just shamelessly copied some text from Wikipedia just because it's a demo. And what I'm going to do is between this title and the content here, I'm going to put a navigation bar going across the top. So the first thing we want to do is to just add in the list. Okay, so I want it in between the two columns, so therefore you have to kind of work out where in the code this will actually fit. So for example, here you've got the header tag of tigers. You may have a navigation bar or whatever it might be, and then the actual div classes kick in. So I want it below the header but above the two columns, which is where my cursor is currently flashing. You may obviously decide to have it elsewhere. That's entirely up to you. Now, like I said, we're going to make this out of an unordered list, so I'm going to start off with the URL tags, and then I'm going to add in the list itself. And because I want this to be a hyperlink, I'm going to add in not us. I would help if I could spell right, and that's entirely the wrong word. You can tell it's a Saturday and my head is like, you shouldn't be working right now. Right, so the reason why we're putting in the class of active is because this is going to be the active page, and we want it to display a little bit differently. So I've got the hyperlink there, a class active, and the actual link to where we want this list item to go to, which will be the home page. Now we can be a little bit lazy here with the remaining items, so I've just highlighted it, I've copied it using Control-C, and then I'm going to add 3 more pages underneath. Now I don't want this class on the future pages, I just want it on the page where it is well, the actual page that it's referring to. So for example, if we're kind of linking this to home to index.html, then actually this is the current page, isn't it? So we want to kind of show that to the user. And I'm going to change these. Now these pages haven't actually been made yet, but these are going to be where these links go to. So I just put in various different types of tigers just to show you really. It's actually popping up because I have actually done this before, obviously, because I did it and didn't record it. So my pages are actually made, however your pages may not be made when you come to do this. Okay, so basically what we're saying here is this is a unordered list where there's 4 items within the list, and the home item will link to index.html. So it's always good practice to call your home page index.html. It's just common practice really, and it will help you identify where your home page is. Then I've got a page and I've called it Siberian, and that is going to link to Siberian.html. And then I've got a page, I've got a list item called Bengal, and it's going to link to Bengal.html, and finally for Sumatra. However, if I save this right now, all it will display is a list down here. It's actually not what we want at all. And by using CSS, we can apply a style to this to make it look how we want. So you're going to need to bear with me with some of this, because basically I'll type it out and then I'll kind of explain what's going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is within the style section, I'm going to put in the tag that we are referring to, which is unordered list. And then I'm going to say that we want this to have no style. I'm going to give it no margin and no padding. Whoops. Now, this is why HTML people and web developers spend half their time decoding stuff. So all of this stuff is basically saying to the browser how we want to style this. We don't want it styled in the traditional manner, and I'm going to give this a background color. Remember that color is spelt the American way. We haven't got a lot of control over that, I'm afraid. W3C is an American company. So the number I've just put in there is obviously linked to a particular type of color. You can type in the name if you found it easier. Okay, so basically here we've applied no styling to the unordered list, and to the margin and padding we're not going to have any of that either. There's going to be no overflow, and the background color is going to be a shade of grey. Now this is going to look horrendous because basically we've not actually put them into blocks yet, so there's going to be like a huge wedge of this color up here, and oh my word, that is sad times. So we now want to, because you may find that actually you may have more than one different list. So this is where things like the class here start to come into effect, and you'll find working with classes and IDs later on. Basically it means that you can use the same element type lots and lots and lots of times, but you need to apply things like classes and IDs to actually help you identify particular ones, because you may not want all of your paragraph text to look the same. But again, that's for another time really. Now I'm going to specify the list element, and I'm just going to float this to the left. I won't do anything in particular just yet. Don't get off, go away. And then I'm going to apply to the list element, which has the anchor tag, which if you look below, literally below this box, you can see all of these list elements also have the anchor tag within them. And now this is really where we're going to start some to make some magic happen. And we're going to do display block, because like I said, we want them to display as blocks going across the screen. The color itself we're going to make white. Text align, we'll put that in the center. We're going to give this a bit more padding, because ultimately we don't want all of our items to be bunched up together. It would look strange. And what are you doing? Have I not put? See, one of the nice things about it, if it's colouring and in a way that you're not expecting, is that generally you've probably made some kind of typing error in there, so it does kind of give you a heads up like that, which is quite nice. Okay, so now this is going to look very, very different to what it looked previously. You know, and you know, now this resembles a navigation bar that we would all kind of recognize, and you may want to fiddle about with things like the width of each item to make it kind of go further across the screen and so on. Just a word of warning, you know, once you start looking at full-on drop-down menus, then you'll start to look at things like child elements and so on. So it'll become a lot more complex if you do that. But right now, we're just looking at actually creating the navigation bar. Now, there is one other thing I want to add to this, which generally when you have a navigation bar like this, you do get some user feedback with the hand when I actually roll over. But I just want a little bit more than that, really. So I'm just going to change the background color when you hover over the item. And again, it's just a different shade, just so that when the user puts their mouse over the item on the navigation bar, it will change color. So now you can see that when I put my mouse over it, it makes it, you know, just that bit more clear to the end user as to what's happening. Remember that user feedback is very important when you're doing this stuff. Users, if they don't like your site, will just click on the X button up here or go somewhere else. You know, so try and give a nice bit of feedback. Obviously, you can style this many different ways, like changing the font. You can change the colors. You can change even the way it looks. So, you know, I've got mine going across the screen here. This is a horizontal navigation bar, but you may also have it displayed down the screen, like a vertical navigation bar. Some sites have their menus on the side. I'm personally not a fan of that myself, but you know, ultimately that could be something that you are interested in. Okay, well, thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.